they've kind of grown up with that thinking. I understand now why older men cry. Yeah.
In conclusion, as in your next generation is also joining the forces, and you've passed on that the idea of service to your family. And if you can conclude with that thought and why it is important for you.
Why it's important to me that the idea that they serve is important.
Yeah.
It worries me of where we're going as a country, because I joined the Navy. It was actually sort of the Cold War was still on, and it was towards the end of the Cold War. It was unlikely that we would go to war with anyone at that point. But I was at sea. I remember I was in the South China Sea when the Gulf War started, and I remember that sense that I had then. I kind of felt a bit like this is what I'd been trained for, born for, sort of thing. My boys, I've got 2 boys in the Army. One's full-time Army as an artillery officer, and the other one's actually going through Army Reserve as an officer now. I guess we've always taught them to serve. We've taught them they've taught and seen the model of the respect for the armed forces and what that means. They know that, if something happened to this country, that would be in a heartbeat. I'm sort of at that, my role now in that age, but I still feel as though if it came down to that I'd be there in a heartbeat. So they've kind of grown up with that thinking. I understand now why older men cry, because they know what it means. We don't talk about, my son's in the Ready Brigade of the Australian Army. They're the ones who'll go first. And recently when the bombing of Iran was happening around that period, they were put on high alert. So, he's in the Ready Brigade. He's saying today that he'll end up in the Ready Battle Group next year. So they're the ones who go.
The frontline.
They're the frontline guys who go. So,
wow.
I know my son, like any young man in that position, it's kind of what you train for, kind of what you live for. But I also know enough veterans who have served in Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, those places, and I know the pain that they live with now, and that they live with. That you come away from those different. I'm grateful in many respects that I never had to go into that situation. I served during the Gulf, but I never went to Iraq because a lot of my mates have come back broken and they have to bear that pain. And that's what we're here for. We're here to defend if we need to, but let's try not to. Let's not rush into that. One of the things I really love about Australia is that we have this. Not ambivalence, but we have a good separation between the political and the military generally, and we don't tend to rush into these things. I think it's important that we value the lives of those people who may have to go and do that, and not take it lightly. I think you mentioned national service, and I get asked about conscription a lot. I have an interesting view on conscription. I actually wrote about conscription when I was at uni and got to present my essay to the WA Historical Society, and that was a very moving time because I wrote about the conscription referenda there was two in the First World War, and I just delivered this essay on it where I was explaining why my theory on why Western Australia voted differently to and Western Australia and Tasmania voted differently to the rest of Australia. So we voted for. And an old lady in her 90s got up and in the Q&A session afterwards, and she said, "Thank you for the research, the work you've done in writing this and still talking about this." She said the only fight she remembered her parents having was over conscription. So her father had volunteered to go to the First World War. And while he was away, her mother was campaigning for conscription. Her father came back for a few weeks on leave, and she said that was the only fight she ever saw them have, because he was dead set against conscription. He said no man should be compelled to go into what I've been in. National service is a different thing. I think, yes, we should be prepared to defend our country, and maybe we need to start thinking about that as more of a militia kind of a force. But conscription itself, it's something that I don't think any government should enter into lightly or even consider lightly. I think on the broader strokes of conscription, that was partly what turned Europe into the meat grinder that it was countries were able to conscript at will millions of men and throw them into the battlefield. I think that's actually a very dangerous thing to put that power into the hands of a government.
Wow. Thank you for your time today.
Pleasure.